Let's take it back to the summer of 2020. That was a really weird and warped time in all of our lives. Everyone was quarantined indoors. Everyone was looking for new hobbies and new ways to pass the time. For me, I took a new interest in reading, and I went down a rabbit hole of some topics I had never had any real desire personally to learn about before. One of those topics was dinosaurs. Don't get me wrong, I think everyone on this planet would agree that dinosaurs are pretty freaking cool. But to me, they were more something that I associated with children, particularly young boys, and maybe archaeology nerds I knew in high school who dreamed of spending the rest of their lives slaved over in the broiling summertime sunshine, digging around in the dirt, stinking, filthy, sweaty, and heartbroken when their entire field trip produced nothing more than disappointment and the need for a shower. However, the summer of 2020 was one of those strange times when you suddenly found yourself interested in things that never interested you before in your life, if for no other reason than to give you something to do with your time. My brother read a book during quarantine called The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by the author Steve Brusati, and he later recommended it to me, and I thought, why not? I did not expect to be enthralled with the contents of the book, but boy oh boy was I in for a surprise. The next thing I knew, I was completely hooked on any and all things dinosaur. The only thing I can compare it to is perhaps my childhood fascination with unicorns. I read anything I could get my hands on, and I watched every modern and presumably scientifically accurate documentary that I could find across all of our streaming platforms. And that is the long answer for how I found myself in early June of 2023 in this blistering, blazing hot botanical gardens just south of Daytona in Port Orange, Florida. I came to search for dinosaurs, but I ended up having about an hour and a half of a stroll through this beautifully tended and manicured park that doubled as an interesting but also sobering history lesson. More on the dinosaurs later. The setting is known as the Dunlawton Sugar Mill Gardens, and its history began long before Florida even initially became a state of the Union in 1845. Originally, Florida was divided up and sold as large tracts of land grants from Spain. In 1804, a 995-acre tract of land was awarded to a merchant from the Bahamas named Patrick Dean. He grew sugarcane, cotton, rice, and possibly also indigo. He reportedly was killed by a Native American Indian or maybe an enslaved person in 1818. The plantation eventually passed as an inheritance to Dean's uncle, John Bunch, a planter from Nassau who became an officer in the British Navy. The land eventually passed down to Bunch's grandson, John B. Bunch McCarty. He had no interest in farming, so he sold the land to property brokers named Charles and Joseph Lawton for $3,000. Meanwhile, a woman named Sarah Petty Dunn Anderson inherited a 450-acre plantation a little further north from her father. After her husband died, she and her sons sold that property and used the proceeds to buy the Dean plantation. They filed under a fictitious name for the purchase, combining her maiden name Dunn with the name Lawton to create the name Dunlawton Plantation. The property was purchased for $4,500 in 1832, and they went on to produce sugar and molasses until December of 1835. By late November of 1835, white settlers in the territory of Florida were becoming more and more alarmed by the activities of the Seminole Indians, whose leaders vehemently protested the United States' new official policy of removal of Native American Indians. A killing by Osceola himself threatened to provoke an armed confrontation. On December 17, 1835, General Joseph Hernandez ordered troops to protect the plantation in the vicinity of the Matanzas, Took, and Mosquito Rivers. Major Benjamin A. Putnam, a lawyer from St. Augustine, led a detachment of the local militia to Dunlawton Plantation, where the Anderson family were attempting to place the estate in a condition prepared for defense by erecting a stockade. Sarah Anderson's sons were impressed into service with the detachment. On Christmas Eve, 1835, the Seminole Indians began their attacks and plunderings against the plantations south of St. Augustine. Over the next several weeks, the marauding Indians burned or ransacked 16 plantations, including the Kruger, DePeyster, and Dunlawton estates. Many of the refugees fled their destroyed plantations and gathered at the Charles Wilhelm Bulow estate. Upon his return from the south, General Hernandez ordered an occupation of Bulowville. The Mosquito Roarers, under their captain Douglas Dummett and a company of poorly trained militia, were dispatched to Dunlawton Plantation to recover abandoned supplies. On January 17, 1836, troops were headed southward towards Dunlawton. As they approached, they saw that a large crowd of war party Seminoles still occupied the land. The Andersons' dwelling house and several slave houses were burning when the command arrived, although the plantation was only partially destroyed. Heavy fire was exchanged in the skirmish, but the militiamen were unable to drive the Indians away. By early February, the Seminoles had succeeded in forcing the white settlers to abandon most of the territory south of St. Augustine. The Anderson family did not receive money after the war to help with rebuilding expenses, so the plantation sat abandoned. In September of 1846, a man named John Marshall purchased the land for $8,000. He rebuilt the plantation and installed processing machinery bought from the destroyed Kruger de Peyster mill in New Smyrna. With the labor of 25 slaves, he began sugar production again from 1849 until 1853. Management was a constant problem during the years Marshall operated the mill, and the plantation failed to run effectively. The eventual collapse of the sugar market caused Marshall to quit the enterprise and sell the property. The plantation changed hands several times in the following years and was used for a variety of different purposes. Eventually, the land returned to the Marshall family. In 1856, it was burned down and almost totally destroyed again during the Third Seminole Indian War. In 1862, the property became a camp headquarters for the St. John Rangers during the American Civil War. They hitched their horses under a large live oak that is now known as the Confederate oak. Throughout the war, the cane juice kettles were used for the production of salt for food preservation and to make ammunition. John Marshall's property was sold to a man named William Doherty in 1871, and William's son Charles inherited the property on his father's death. Charles was a successful lawyer and eventually was elected as Florida's first United States congressman. He had no interest in agriculture, and the mill was never operated again. Between 1871 and 1904, the property was sold off slowly in smaller and smaller lots. The Dunlawton mill was never used to produce sugar again after the Civil War. However, the kettles did make one final impressive moment in history. In 1906, two whales beached themselves below the newly built wooden Port Orange Bridge. Their carcasses were dragged to Dunlawton Plantation, where the furnaces were fired up and the oil from the whales' blubber was rendered in the old kettles. Dunlawton Plantation was a tourist destination as early as 1939. As seems to be common with many abandoned structures destroyed in 19th century Florida, the site was mistakenly identified as the ruins of an old Spanish mission dating from the 1600s. This will bring us to the part of my story that connected me to this property in the first place. I mentioned at the beginning of this video how much I am interested in dinosaurs, and even more than dinosaurs, I'm interested in the history of how we came to learn about dinosaurs and the evolution of what we've known over time. Briefly, in the 1940s to 50s, this property was leased to a man named Dr. Perry Sperber. He was a dermatologist and allergist from Daytona Beach, known for his radical therapies and treatments, even labeled by some people to be a quack. His specialties were unheard of at the time and involved therapies such as dermabrasion, which is a commonplace procedure today. He also wrote a book titled Sex and the Dinosaurs in 1970. That's a rabbit hole I will attempt to read my way down at a later date if I can ever get my hands on a copy. Dr. Sperber was a man ahead of his time. In addition to his radical ideas about skincare, he also had visions of Florida becoming a popular tourist destination long before Disney, Universal, or SeaWorld broke ground. Dr. Sperber created an amusement park on this property and commissioned an artist known as Manny Lawrence to build dinosaurs out of concrete and chicken wire to delight the children who visited. Other attractions in the park included a recreated and reenacted Indian village, animals, a train to ride through the native Florida forest, and a resident monkey known as Bongo. Dr. Sperber named his park Bongoland in honor of the baboon. However, Florida was not ready to become a tourist attraction, and the amusement park failed after only 4 or 5 opening seasons due to lack of public interest. The property sat neglected until 1963, when it was bequeathed by its current owner to Volusia County. In 1985, a local nurseryman named Martin Withold formed an organization called the Botanical Gardens of Volusia Incorporated. They made an agreement with the county to lease the mill property in 1985, beginning a new life for the Dunlawton Plantation sugar mill. Their mission is to educate local gardeners about what can grow in this area of Florida, as well as create a beautiful place for visitors to enjoy while they explore the historical mill ruins. They have created different gardens and plant collections including azaleas, camellias, ivies, magnolias, native plants, palms, succulents, ferns, herbs, tropical plants, and a recreation of an Asian garden. Master gardeners perform regular demonstrations for educational purposes. Many of the projects are done by the Eagle Scouts, who are recognized on a project board at the front entrance. A children's garden was created around the remaining full-size cement dinosaurs. Very hot, very cool though. Today, the Botanical Gardens, along with the remains of the abandoned amusement park and sugar mills, are open to the public for viewing. The park is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day of the week, year-round except for Christmas and New Year's days. There is limited gravel parking across the street and a few paved parking spots right in front of the front gate. This site is now completely run by volunteers who love Florida's natural history and tending to and caring for the wide array of plants that they have to show off. Admission is completely free, although there is a red mailbox for donations immediately upon entering the park. The website mentions that a donation of $1 would be greatly appreciated. Just past the red donations mailbox is a green mailbox containing park maps and guides if you would like to take one. As soon as I heard that there was an abandoned theme park with dinosaurs in it within a reasonable driving distance of where I live, I was immediately fixated on Bongoland and I just could not wait to visit. Michael and I visited Dunlawton and Bongoland on a Friday morning in June of 2023. There were only a very small number of visitors to the park, and we did not see anyone who appeared to be volunteering or on duty that day. However, signs informed us that there are master gardener demonstrations and question-answer sessions that take place on certain Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I had several questions about the dinosaurs that I just really wanted to have answered, but I could not find the information available anywhere online. There are a limited number of photographs online of the dinosaur structures, most of which are incredibly grainy and blurry or taken in black and white. First of all, I really wanted to know how many dinosaurs there were originally when the park opened in 1948. Today, there are 4 statues remaining: a Triceratops, a Stegosaurus, a Dimetrodon, and a giant ground sloth. There was at one time also a Tyrannosaurus Rex, of course. I mean, what would a dinosaur park be without a T-Rex? Long-necked dinosaurs have always been my favorites, though. I'm totally a land before time girl, and I just couldn't believe that a dinosaur park had ever been constructed without paying homage to the best dinosaur there ever was. However, if one ever existed in Bongoland, I surely could not find evidence of it online. The only photos online are of the 4 structures that remain standing today, and of course the T-Rex that was destroyed in July of 2019. For a second question, I'm not entirely sure how the T-Rex was destroyed. The Dunlawton Plantation website has warnings posted about not climbing on the dinosaur statues as they are old and showing signs of their age, even crumbling in some places. Photographs from the last 80 years show that countless children have climbed atop them, all to smile for the cameras. However, at 20 feet tall, I find it hard to believe that a child climbed up the T-Rex. The Bongoland T-Rex was constructed back in a time when scientists believed that T-Rex stood upright on his hind legs, making him pretty difficult to climb. I remember when I was reading Steve Brusati's book, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, being informed for the first time in my life that T-Rexes actually walked with their heads pitched forward and their tails behind like a rudder or a counterbalance, instead of upright as I'd always been told. This shocked me and completely blew my mind, but immediately it made complete sense. Now I can't even imagine how a dinosaur as heavy as a T-Rex could ever stand upright like a human. He would be so unbalanced and so unstable. I'm wondering if, at the height and size of the Bongoland T-Rex statue, he may have come down during one of Florida's tropical storms or hurricanes, but I truly do not know how he fell. It's such a shame that he is not still standing today. I really want to know if the dinosaurs were painted different colors when they were first put in this park in 1948. I didn't find any information about that online, and there are no photos in color from the years that the park was active, only black and white photos and usually with children in them. The color photos that I've seen are from so many years later. If there ever even was any paint on these dinosaurs, it has long been chipped or washed off. So I would really love to know if the dinosaurs were cement from day one with no paint, or if they were bright and colorful. My fourth question centers around the Triceratops. I grew up in the state of North Carolina, and I have many childhood memories of going on weekend trips with my family to Cherokee, North Carolina. There was a children's amusement park there known as Santaland, which is still in operation today. I distinctly remember driving into Cherokee on that long and sickeningly winding mountain highway and passing a friendly Triceratops statue out in front of a gift shop. I don't think we ever stopped the car and got out to say hello to the statue, but it was just one of those landmarks that I remember as a kid that told me we were almost there. The photos I saw online before going to Bongoland of the Triceratops reminded me completely of the Cherokee one, and I did as much research as I could online about the Cherokee friend. Sadly, I could not find one single piece of information about the origins of the Cherokee dinosaur, not even which artist is accredited with creating it. Other than a fairly recent gaudy green paint job, it appears that the Triceratops walked up to the gift shop and just froze in time. The two statues look so much alike, however, I was prepared to defend my opinion that they had to be cast from the same mold or model. However, once standing beside the Bongoland Triceratops, I'm almost certain it is much larger than the Cherokee one and perhaps just coincidentally similar. Lastly, I wanted more information about the old train and its tracks that the children rode as they made their tour of the park. I can only imagine how fun it was to ride the train past the reconstructed Indian village, the little zoo including a monkey, and having a scavenger hunt for friendly dinosaurs. If there are any remains of the train or the tracks left today, though, I did not see them and there was no one on site to ask about this. I am wondering if perhaps the old train tracks were removed and the trails were turned into what is now the walking path throughout the dense Florida jungle. Well, I think I've told you everything I know about the Dunlawton sugar mill plantation that turned into Bongoland, that turned into a botanical garden. You can reserve this outdoor area if you go on their website and contact them. But I would highly recommend anybody who finds any of these things interesting to go check it out for yourself. It's a free activity. They would really appreciate a small donation from you. But you could easily spend half a day here just wandering around and admiring everything. We were here for, I think, about 2 hours total. They have nice restroom facilities on site. And the only thing I would say, it's unfortunate that dogs are not actually allowed. I can totally understand this since not everyone, maintains their dog and keeps them clean. And there are children at play here with the children's park. So there are reasons not to allow dogs. But only service animals are actually permitted in this park, so don't show up thinking that you're going to get in a nice hike with your furry friend. But still, all in all, I don't have a single complaint about this place, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time here. I know Michael did too. We were here in just about the hottest part of the summer, so maybe you would want to check it out in the fall, the winter, or on a day that's a little overcast maybe. It was pretty hot the day we were there, but that didn't deter us from having a good time. I showed up for the dinosaurs just because I was really interested to see them, but I was not expecting the history lesson that I got and to find such a cool place that for me, is off the beaten path and I had never heard of before. Highly recommend this. I think it's fantastic. The rest of this footage is just Michael's GoPro footage. I didn't want to clip any of it out in case there's anybody out there who just wants to see the entire park from front to back. I think we filmed everything that's there. If we missed anything, it was totally on accident. We certainly didn't mean to, but I think if you watched this in video in its entirety, you wouldn't have missed anything. That's my opinion. I hope you enjoy this. I hope if you go, you let me know and you have a great time, and I will see you another day in another video.